So today the book that I want to talk about is The Skin and Its Girl by Sarah Cypher. This book is about this Palestinian American girl named Betty who was born in America, but she was born with blue skin, and she's very heavy even though she doesn't look very heavy as a baby. And yeah, that's uh, because of not because of her circumstances, because of other things. Her mother tried to give her up for adoption, but her mother's mother and also her great aunt, they stopped they stopped that from happening, and the three of them raised the blue baby. Uh, and her father also kind of did it, even though he was a little bit out of the picture at first. But yeah, that's basically the premise. It's mostly a literary fiction story with a single speculative element in the fact that her skin is blue. But yeah, 95% of the book is just literary fiction. Even though this was nominated for the Ursula K. Le Guin Prize for Fiction, which made me think that this was at least magical realism, if not sci-fi fantasy. But it's not really magical realism either. It is just yeah, literary fiction, and that's why the focus is not really on the plot but on the characters, um, and not just Betty but also her great aunt whose name is Aunt Nuha. um, and other than that, it also focuses on identity, I guess, especially being a Palestinian. And so yeah, it was unique, a very unique experience, because when I was reading this, I was also reading Ta-Nehisi Coates' new book, The Message, which deals a lot with Palestine as well. So yeah, I didn't even realize that this book was about a Palestinian American girl, but I guess it's a good coincidence. But yeah, back to this book. This book, if you're looking for something plot heavy, then you're not gonna find that here. Like basically, the only plot heavy thing in this book is the story about the Rumanis, like about the ancient like history of the family, and that part is not really my favorite part. It's kind of confusing, and the family tree is kind of unclear, and I'm not sure why it's even there in the first place. But that part is pretty much the only thing that feels very fast paced, and the rest is slow paced because we see Betty basically growing up from nothing to adulthood, kinda, and it's a slow process, and the process itself, that's where I think the strength of this book is, from the characters, especially Betty and Nuhas, and also the perspective that we see the stories from. It's almost entirely from Betty's point of view, but she can seemingly see the past and see what she experienced when she was a baby, and she can also get into other characters' heads and see what they're experiencing. So it's very interesting. Like the writing style is beautiful. It's a bit complicated sometimes, but it's not. Uh, it's very elegant, I would say. It's worth the effort to process what's going on in terms of the prose. Similarly, the characters are also kind of like that, um, which makes them all very compelling. Even though we only focus on two of them, Betty and Nuha, even her mother and also her grandma and her father, they're all very convincing and very different. Even though we don't get to see them all that much compared to the two main characters. Um, yeah, it's not. It's definitely not perfect. Again, like I said, some part of the past, like the flashbacks, are kind of complicated and not in a good way. Um, and it's pretty slow paced. Mostly, like I said. So if you're the type of reader who prefers like deep characterization and themes and instead of plot, then you would enjoy this. But again, that's just being a literary fiction reader instead of a science fiction fantasy reader. But yeah, the character dynamics are just absolutely top notch. So if you're a character focused reader who don't really care too much about the plot, and you wanna read a literary fiction read that is kind of weird, with one weirdness, I guess, in this case, then this might be the book for you. Don't Just because this was nominated for a sci-fi fantasy award doesn't mean that this is sci-fi fantasy. It is not. It's barely magical realism. So yeah, if that sounds like something you would enjoy, you should definitely give this one a try. It's good. It's not for me, but I can see why a lot of people really like this one. So yeah, I'm giving this one a 3 out of 5. Yeah, that's all for me today. Thanks for watching.